Royal, the hero, shows up exhausted after a battle. A powerful figure praises him and makes a proposal. She wants him to become her servant. The demon lord Lilius Note offers special privileges to convince Royal to serve her. He reacts annoyed and embarrassed by the situation, trying to keep his cool despite the provocation. Cynthia, a girl with holy powers, scolds Royal, demanding more seriousness from him. He tries to compose himself but is clearly shaken by the situation. Then, she calls him firmly. Rinka, determined and serious, tells Royal that cheating is unacceptable. He tries to play it cool but is caught off guard by her explosive reaction when she suspects something, even though he didn't say anything. Sarah, a fire spirit, warns that if Royal cheats, she'll burn him. He gets the message and admits that all of them are important to him, showing some honesty in the middle of all the chaos. Royal and his allies decide to finish things and charge straight at Lilius Note. The demon lord taunts them with a smile, ready for battle. The fight kicks off with full force. At the end of the day, the guy wakes up and realizes it was all just his imagination. He wasn't a hero, just a simple gate guard, returning to reality as his shift ends. Watching the sunset, the guard quietly laments that the story in his head was getting good, but he had to snap back, returning to his simple routine. Even though he was just a guard who stood around all day, he admits he only managed to keep going because of his own imagination. Daydreaming became part of his routine, and it's what kept him steady until now. He reveals it's been 15 years since he was recruited by the Knights. Even as just a guard, his physique is impressive. Reality hits and he's shocked at how long he's been stuck in the same role. When he was younger, a group of Knights approached him, complimented his physique, and invited him to join them. In that moment, he realized that was the real reason for their invitation. At 15 years old and 1.9 meter tall, Royal was hyped to be accepted by the Knights. Everyone said his future was set, and back then, he really believed it. He filled himself with expectations, feeling his heart race with excitement. Despite his impressive build, Royal couldn't stand out in training. He was bad with both sword and spear, seen by the others as just a body with no talent. Even so, he kept trying, even while hearing harsh comments behind his back. After failing at combat, they suggest Royal tries magic. This gives him hope, making him think maybe he has some hidden talent, since they say those who can't fight might be good with magic. Royal tries his hardest to use magic, but nothing happens. The instructors watch and one of them says not to force it, that magic should come naturally. Once again, he sees he's got no talent, even after all his effort. Unable to stand out at magic or combat, Royal ends up assigned to be the North Gate Guard. His job is simple, just stand there, not talk or move, unless there's an emergency. He accepts it, even though it's a post with no action or recognition. While he stands at his post, Royal loses himself in daydreams, picturing scenarios where he's powerful, using magic, getting recognized by others, even being loved. He imagines epic battles, allies calling him into action, and even romantic moments all inside his own head. Royal thinks about the 15 years he spent just standing there, daydreaming. But suddenly, something changes. A colleague calls him and hands him an important message. He's been summoned to the commander's office. When he gets to the commander's office, Royal receives unexpected news. He's fired. They tell him not to even bother coming back the next day. He's left in total shock, not knowing how to react. Royal finds out he'll be replaced by a magical surveillance device. The unit's decision to switch to this automated system makes his presence pointless. He leaves, head down, feeling the weight of what just happened. Royal walks the streets, laughing bitterly. In his mind, voices from the past echo compliments about his physique and promises of a bright future mix with mockery about his lack of talent. He carries years of frustrated expectations and regret. After reliving everything in his mind, Royal clenches his fist and shouts, trying to affirm something to himself. After 15 years stuck in a pointless job, he finally seems ready to break from the past and make a decision. Royal raises his arms and yells with all he's got, "Free!" After 15 years trapped in a meaningless job, he finally feels free, celebrating like a weight's been lifted from his back. Royal remembers all the years he told himself he'd quit, but never had the courage. 15 years of staying silent, stuck in the routine. Now, after letting out a scream he held in for so long, he decides he'll choose again, this time by his own will. With a smile and a determined look, Royal finally makes his decision. He's going to become an adventurer. After 15 years standing still, he takes his first step toward a new life, this time on his own terms. The fantasies Royal created for years now turn into real motivation. He runs with determination, ready to start his own story. This time, He's not just a background character, he's the protagonist of his own adventure. A week passes since Royal decided to become an adventurer, but nothing happens. No adventure, no epic story, just a moment where he helped an old lady with back pain. Even so, he takes it lightly and keeps going, smiling. Royal keeps walking with hope. Every step shows him new scenery, way different than just standing at the gate. He believes that when he reaches the adventurer city, Melki, his real adventures will finally begin. On the way, Royal sees a girl walking with difficulty, clearly exhausted. She can barely keep going, dragging her feet and out of breath, catching his attention. Something seems about to happen. Royal sees the tired girl and immediately thinks it's his chance. To him, she's the heroine of the story, and as the protagonist, he can't ignore someone in trouble. Smiling, he decides to get closer and help her. As he gets close to help, Royal sees the girl up close and notices something strange. Suddenly, a huge suit of armor appears behind her, intimidating and threatening. The situation changes in an instant, and for the first time, he faces real danger. Even determined to help, Royal freezes. After 15 years almost without talking to anyone, he can't even start a conversation. The girl gets suspicious of his silence, and Royal tries to explain himself in his head, desperate to seem normal while everything goes different from what he imagined. Royal tries to talk to the girl, but nerves make him stutter random words, making things even weirder. The girl, scared and suspicious, slowly backs away, clearly thinking he's pretty odd. Royal realizes his attempt failed completely. The girl is terrified of him. He blames his build for always causing these misunderstandings. Desperate, he chases after her, trying to explain, determined not to let things end like this. While trying to explain, Royal trips and falls flat on his face, sinking into despair and embarrassment. He realizes just how bad things went and starts feeling sorry for himself, thinking he ruined everything. The girl, seeing this, starts to change her expression. The girl bursts out laughing after seeing Royal's fall. She admits she was being way too cautious and offers him a hand, smiling and asking if he can get up. Royal, surprised and relieved, thanks her with a shy smile, and a surprising connection begins. Royal realizes he was right. The girl really did get hurt. She says it's just a minor sprain, and the two of them laugh about it together. Excited, he thinks this is his first mission, as the protagonist and the heroine of the story has already shown up before he even made it to the city. Royal feels bad realizing that, even hurt, the girl helped him without hesitation. He calls himself an idiot for always fantasizing too much, thinking everything was just part of a story. But now he understands she's just a kind person, real, not just a character from his imagination. Even while thinking he lives stuck in his imagination, Royal can't help but create another scene in his head. Himself as a confident hero, healing the girl with magic and being respectfully called Lord Royal. In reality, he keeps just watching, still trying to handle his own limits. Royal imagines a scene where he uses a powerful healing spell, amazing everyone around and getting praised as a real hero. But he quickly snaps out of that daydream and feels frustrated, realizing he doesn't have that power and wonders, worried if there's anything real he can do for her. Suddenly, a bright light surrounds the girl, and her body starts to levitate, like she's being healed or getting some kind of energy. Royal watches in shock, not really understanding what's happening. Something extraordinary just awakened. The girl is surprised to see her leg completely healed. She gets emotional, thanking him excitedly. Royal is speechless. What seemed impossible just happened in front of his eyes, and he has no idea how. Royal remembers all the times he was called useless, talentless. They always said he wasn't good for magic or combat. But now, after healing the girl without knowing how, she looks at him in admiration and calls him a mage, something he never imagined he'd hear. Royal is shocked to be called a mage and can't believe this is real. At that moment, a mysterious message pops into his mind. Magic is inequality. Something inside him really seems to have awakened. Magic is a rare gift that only a few people are born with. Only 10% of the population have this power, creating an unequal hierarchy, like a pyramid of power based on natural talent. Magic is a rare gift, found in just 10% of the population. Even among those chosen few, only a handful reach the supreme level. Trained priests can use wound healing magic, but usually can only ease the pain. Complete recovery is out of reach for most. Only those at the top of this unequal pyramid, the true prodigies among the 10%, are able to perform full healing. Diz, enchanted, asks Royal's name and introduces herself. He, still stunned, replies with his own name while she smiles gratefully. Royal realizes that the spell, Great Breath of Life, doesn't actually exist. He made up the name himself and is surprised that he said it so confidently. Even though he isn't a mage, Royal understands that Great Breath of Life is just something he invented, a result of 15 years of daydreaming. But the girl insists, asking him to heal a scratch he made before, leaving him surprised and not sure what to do. Royal remembers that, during the test to join the Knights, he couldn't use magic. He wasn't part of the talented group, the 100%. Now, an acquaintance asks if he's also going to Melky City. Royal meets Diz on the road, and she suggests they go to Melky together. He feels a bit awkward, explaining that he's kind of clumsy because of his big body. Diz notices his shyness and smiles, trying to make him more comfortable. Royal still doesn't really understand why he can use magic, but he's happy to have helped the girl. Diz assures him she's good at judging people. The girl says she was expelled from being a saint because, even after years of training in the Holy City, she never managed to learn holy magic. In the end, she was kicked out. She says she was so angry that she tore her dress in front of her superior and ran off, getting hurt along the way. He tries to think of something to say to her, searching for words to calm her down. She decides to go to Melky to become an adventurer, saying she feels more confident that way. He agrees, while she jokes that it took her a while to realize that. She compliments his strength. While walking through the forest, they hear a scream for help. The girl asks if he knows any detection magic, but they soon realize it's all just another fantasy he created. When they try to act, whoever called for help has already fled. The girl is upset because the princess was captured by bandits, and she's a knight who was supposed to protect her. She explains that the enemies are former subordinates who turned against her, part of the Assassin's Guild she hates. Even so, she promises to fix things. The boy, confidently, says he'll show those guys the power of the Assassin's Guild. The boy casts a powerful spell called Mundus Couvre, the invisible hand that covers the world. To his surprise, the magic works perfectly, just as expected. The girl is impressed and excited by the result. They detect that a human is being attacked by 3 tall orcs, 500 meters ahead. The girl offers to help and runs off, while the boy realizes he can use the magic he just learned. He thinks that if he can use healing magic, maybe he can use attack magic too. The group is shocked to see an ancient dragon that could destroy an entire nation by itself. The princess is desperate, thinking the country is doomed, while Royal watches the power of that monster. A mage appears, launching a powerful attack called Omnis Pierce All Things, surprising everyone around. Diz realizes the magic bullets are Royal's, while the orcs get ready to attack and people prepared to defend themselves, ready for battle. The orcs charge in, covered in smoke, and Diz watches, surprised. Meanwhile, the village defenders get ready for the fight. The smoke clears, revealing that no one was hurt. Diz asks about the people and their injuries, and Royal starts walking toward her. Diz recognizes that it was Royal who used magic to save everyone. She praises his strength, surprised at his ability to use magic bullets that look like they're guided. Royal thinks that now he's finally able to use the kind of magic he always imagined. Royal realizes the spells he's using are from the most powerful classes in the fantasy world: attack, detection, and healing. He understands he's really casting high-level spells. Royal doesn't get why he has this talent, even though he never expected it. He thanks the girl and the people he saved, who are really grateful and want to repay him. Flora Din, daughter of Count Din, thanks Royal for saving their lives. He's left not knowing what to say, realizing he needs to say something for things to move forward. Royal has a moment of clarity and realizes the magic from his imagination, which he can now use, might also help improve his communication skills in real life. He decides to try answering calmly and politely, believing the secret is just having confidence. Royal introduces himself with a weird smile, happy that no one got hurt. The 2 girls look at him, surprised, with intense gazes. The orcs attack, threatening the lady to run. Royal says he'll protect the lady, even if it costs his life, and moves against the orcs, asking them to stop. The girl asks them to stop and apologizes for being rude. She explains that the boy was too nervous to talk properly, and asks for forgiveness. She also acknowledges that it was his magic that saved everyone there. The girl is grateful, everyone is okay, especially Flora and the others. She invites the 2 to her property in Melky, and as a noble, she wants to repay the kindness. Flora apologizes for being rude and stands up. The group continues their journey by carriage, while the protagonist thinks and watches the scenery around him. They go on in the carriage. The protagonist thinks his communication skills are still weak. Inside, Flora and Diz chat cheerfully, happy to be together. Even though he's not good at communication, she talks to him like it's nothing. She quickly fixes the situation he messed up, chatting casually with a noble's daughter she just met, as if they were old friends. He sees how special she island. She's the embodiment of communication skills, known as the ancient dragon of these skills, Diz. He's surprised by that title. A group arrives in front of a luxurious mansion, greeted by a girl. They thank her for the welcome and are invited in. One of the boys starts thinking to himself, wondering how he could improve the way he talks, since he's not on the same level as the others. The girl asks if Royal is the type to work alone, and he confirms he's just starting out as an adventurer in the city. She's surprised, thinking he was already experienced, but gets excited to find out they're both in the same boat. Royal is also shocked, since by her appearance and strong magic, he thought she was already a veteran. Excited by the discovery that they're both beginners, the girl reaches out to Royal and suggests they form an adventurer party together. Surprised, he's left in shock by the idea, trying to process the proposal. During a fancy dinner, the host presents the table full of food with enthusiasm, thanking Royal and Diz for saving his daughter's life. He says that, because of that, their own lives were also saved. Royal is touched and surprised by so much gratitude. Royal is still surprised by the idea of forming a party. The girl explains it would be a team to take on jobs, go on adventures, and make money together. Even saying she knows it was sudden, she encourages him to take his time and think about it. Royal refuses any extra reward, saying the gold coins are more than enough. He explains he plans to use the city as a base for his adventures, and to contribute however he can. The family thanks him and says if he needs anything, he can look for them. Flora says they've been invited to spend the night there, and Royal, already in his room, starts to relax. Royal is in shock at the idea of forming a party with Diz. Even though he feels inferior, he gets emotional at being invited by someone he already respects. Even though they just met, he feels like this is an opportunity he couldn't have imagined. Royal wakes up restless, scolding himself for doubting himself. He decides that since Diz invited him, he should accept with confidence. When he goes downstairs, still a bit nervous, he finds Diz greeting him in the morning, while he tries to find the courage to answer. Royal finally finds the courage and asks out loud if Diz wants to form a party with him. She answers excitedly, saying she's been looking forward to it. Flora shows up, happily greeting the two of them. And meanwhile, Royal starts to feel the weight of responsibility for moving forward alongside them. The next morning, Royal and Diz say goodbye to the family with gratitude. Everyone thanks them for the help and asks them to come visit again someday. Diz says goodbye with a bright smile, and the two leave the mansion together, ready to start their adventures as a new group. Walking next to Diz, Royal reflects on the changes in his life. After years trapped in a routine, he finally arrived in a new city, found a companion, and feels like something is different. After 15 years stuck, now he's starting to take the first steps towards something new. Royal looks at the city ahead of him with hope. After so long stuck in the same old thing, he feels like his life is finally moving forward again. And this new beginning starts now. Diz asks Royal what the next step will be. He thinks for a moment and remembers that, as adventurers, they need to register at the guild before starting any quests. With that decided, the two get ready to officially begin their new journey. Before even going to the guild, Diz decides the most important thing is to secure a base for the group. She suggests they check out a real estate agency first, and Royal, a little surprised by the idea, ends up agreeing with a slight smile. Diz explains that, since they'll be in the city for a while, she wants to avoid problems with inns and secure a place of their own. Royal gets it, imagining she's probably had trouble before because of her flashy appearance. Then she suggests they choose a symbol for their group together, leaving him confused by the sudden change of topic. The scene shifts to a real estate agency called Misa Shibanidrip. The owner is calmly reading the newspaper and drinking coffee, satisfied with his own success. With a calm and confident air, he says that, as always, he's doing well. Diz and Royal walk into the agency and ask about a property with a sign that caught their attention. The agent, friendly and experienced, greets them warmly, offers tea, and says he'll bring the documents for the cursed property, immediately showing interest in the topic. Behind the friendly smile, the agent reveals his real intentions. He sees Royal and Diz as perfect targets, a guy with a clueless face and a girl who's way too confident. He's already planning to push a haunted house onto them, jacking up the price like it's a great deal. For him, these kinds of clients are exactly how he makes the most profit. When Diz hears the price of 150,000 yen per month, she looks excited and interested, while Royal is completely shocked. The agent tries to convince them that, even though it's haunted, a mansion that size for that price is a steal. Royal's reaction makes it clear he's not convinced at all. The agent starts sweating as he faces Royal. He's been proud of reading clients for 20 years, but now he feels something different, a deadly look. For a moment, he really believes Royal is about to kill him. The atmosphere gets tense, and Royal's presence changes completely, sending the agent into panic. Diz teaches Royal a negotiation trick. Whenever she touches her right ear, he should react with a "what?" to pressure the agent. According to her, this helps lower prices, since a lot of people try to overcharge. Royal gets that it's just a common strategy, especially among people who hide their real intentions behind smiles. Diz takes over the negotiation and pushes the agent, saying that just purifying the spirit would cost about 2 million yen, way more than the rent. The agent, cornered and sweating, tries to keep his cool but quickly gives in, lowering the price to 100,000 yen per month. He feels Royal's intimidating presence and realizes he's lost control of the situation. Diz finishes the pressure with a serious look and suggests 50,000 yen a month as a fair price. The agent panics, tries to push the price up to 80,000, then 60,000, but is cut off by Royal's simple "what?", leaving him with no way out. The negotiation is now totally in their hands. With no options left, the agent gives in and accepts the price of 50,000 yen per month, totally defeated. Meanwhile, Diz and Royal celebrate their successful negotiation with a high five, officially marking the start of the group's new base. Diz and Royal celebrate with a high five. Their base of operations is officially secured. Even with the agent begging for his life after the stress, Diz thinks that, despite being tough, the price is fair for the place's condition, especially since it's haunted by a high-level spirit that even regular clerics couldn't handle. With everything settled, Diz decides it's time to purify the mansion. Full of energy, she calls Royal to help out. He, confused and lost, realizes he has no choice. Impressed by her attitude, he just thinks Diz is really a tough girl. The story continues in the next arc, the showdown against the powerful spirit. The manga explains the origin of ghosts. Negative emotions left by humans or animals after death, like regrets, anger, or sadness, end up creating creatures called specters. These low-level ghosts cause chills, nausea, and depression in anyone nearby. But when hundreds or even thousands of those feelings merge into a single entity, something much worse can appear. The mansion Royal and Diz rented is controlled by a high-level specter, known as a wraith. Unlike regular ghosts, it's extremely strong, aggressive, and protects its territory with obvious hatred for intruders. In short, it's a highly dangerous monster, and now they're about to face it head-on. In front of the isolated mansion, surrounded by a gloomy vibe, Diz says the place is known as the Haunted Mansion, a name that fits perfectly. She thinks there are different types of wraiths, but still doesn't know which one they'll find. When she asks Royal's opinion, he just replies, "Yeah," clearly having no idea what to expect. As the gates of the mansion open with a heavy, creepy atmosphere, Diz mentions that the spirit inside might be really dangerous. Even so, she tries to keep calm, and Royal admits she's pretty tough. They both figure even a high-level priest would have a hard time with this wraith, which just shows how hard the challenge island. Still, Diz wants to know if Royal's okay with moving forward. Dressed as a priestess, Diz tries to face the wraith, but soon gets out of breath, admitting she can't handle it alone. She turns to Royal and, respectfully calling him Your Excellency, asks for help. Royal looks at her in silence for a moment, realizing it's now up to him to take on this threat. Faced with Diz's honest request for help, Royal remembers when she invited him to form a party. The image of her reaching out comes back to him, and while he thinks in silence, his look changes decided. He realizes how much this connection means, and gets ready to act. Royal decides to take on the role of Rival, a divine and powerful figure, for the situation. Even feeling guilty for tricking Diz, he plays the part to help her defeat the wraith. Even though it's just an act, something in him wakes up, and as he focuses, he starts reciting sacred words like he's channeling some ancient power. Royal gets ready to act as Rival, his temporary identity. He accepts the part, even feeling guilty with Diz. As he gets into character and activates his powers, the narration explains what kind of spirit they're dealing with. Low-level specters, formed by negative emotions, get dangerous in large numbers. But when all those feelings merge, wraiths show up, hostile, powerful entities that protect their territory with rage. And that's exactly what lives in their mansion. The mansion starts reacting, with a dark presence stirring inside. Evil energy spreads through the walls as the wraith slowly wakes up, watching carefully who dares invade its territory. The battle against the spirit is about to begin. A dark energy explodes from the mansion, along with a monstrous scream. Royal stays calm, raising his hand confidently, while Diz watches, impressed by his presence and power. To her, he's exceeding all expectations. The fight with the Wraith has finally started. Diz watches in surprise at the magic Royal uses. She realizes he used a technique called abbreviated chant, an advanced method that compresses and instantly activates the magical power of a spell. This skill isn't common, and the way Royal uses it so efficiently leaves Diz even more impressed. The technique Royal used isn't something ordinary, only the most powerful mages can master, abbreviated chanting, putting him among the few at the top of the magical hierarchy. Diz gets totally confused and starts to wonder who he really island. Meanwhile, Royal remembers arriving in that city, just wanting to become an ordinary adventurer. After the tension, Royal tries to lighten the mood by saying that everything probably went well. Even without being sure, he forces a confident smile. Diz looks at him quietly, then lets out a little laugh, amused by the situation. Even with the uncertainty, she seems to trust him. Right after, something urgently catches their attention. Diz runs up to Royal and hugs him in thanks, smiling and saying he's really a good person. Surprised and not knowing what to do, Royal just stands there. But inside, he feels absurdly happy with that moment. The mansion is officially theirs now. Royal and Diz finally enter the mansion. Even though the place is full of dust and cobwebs, they're impressed with the space. Diz smiles excitedly, saying it's worth cleaning everything. Royal, caught up in the mood, calls her attention with a suggestion for the day. Diz suggests they just clean the main areas of the mansion and proposes a welcome party to celebrate the new home. Royal agrees right away. Together, they clean up, cook food, and spend the night talking about adventures, plans, and dreams. For both, it's a simple but very special moment. The next morning, Royal wakes up peacefully and stretches out, feeling satisfied. He thinks about the day before, remembering how fun the celebration was. It was his first party with drinks, and even though it was simple, he feels fulfilled. It was a memorable night for him. As Royal goes downstairs after waking up, he hears someone knocking at the door. Thinking Diz is still sleeping, he decides to answer. He gets curious, wondering who it could be, maybe a neighbor, or maybe even someone cute, but he quickly dismisses that idea. Even so, he feels a weird nervousness as he gets closer and opens the door. When he opens the door, Royal comes face to face with a girl who surprises him. She introduces herself politely, apologizes for showing up out of nowhere, and gets straight to the point. She wants to ask about the mansion. She senses a powerful wraith lived there, and wants to confirm its presence. Her serious look shows she knows exactly what she's after. The girl says she felt a huge magical energy near the mansion, and confirms she saw the exorcism's power. She asks Royal if he did the exorcism, and if he's living there now. Royal confirms, while she thinks it over, intrigued that he used such strong magic with simple spells. The mysterious girl says she has a favor to ask, but then gets suspicious when she notices something strange in the mansion. She starts knocking on the door, insisting on talking to whoever's inside. Royal thinks her behavior is a bit creepy, but tries to figure out what's happening. The girl keeps knocking non-stop, calling out for Royal over and over. He starts to panic at her persistence, finding the situation scary while trying to figure out what to do. Royal is terrified with the girl knocking like crazy, sweating and not understanding why she's being so insistent. He thinks she's way too creepy and wonders what's wrong with that girl. The next day, Royal tells Diz everything about the weird girl at the door. Diz listens calmly, just saying she wants to meet the girl next time, acting totally chill while Royal is still speechless. Before exploring dungeons, Diz says they need to sort out a bunch of daily things. She suggests the first step is to go shopping, catching Royal off guard. Diz even shows her dress and says she's not wearing the right clothes for adventures. Royal realizes he barely knows anything about being an adventurer, and that Diz's thin dress isn't armor at all. He gets that. Just like she said, the first thing is to get proper equipment. The scene cuts to a shop full of weapons and armor. After changing clothes, Diz shows up ready and excited, making Royal nervous, thinking she looks really cute. Right after, she remembers they still need a magic bag, a basic item for adventurers since it lets you store big stuff. Diz explains you can only find these in specialty stores and drags Royal along to the next stop. Diz shows Royal the magic bag, explaining that it can carry a ton without getting heavy. Royal is impressed he's wanted one for a while. Meanwhile, he starts thinking he's just tagging along, not really being useful, and feels like dead weight on the trip. Even so, Diz already says the next step is heading to the guild to officially register as adventurers. Royal and Diz arrive at the Adventurers Guild. The place is packed and everyone's staring at them, making Royal really uncomfortable. Feeling the pressure, He puts on his helmet, trying to hide and blend in. As soon as they enter, Royal and Diz are greeted by a receptionist named Mocha, who has animal ears and a friendly vibe. She welcomes them and asks how she can help. Diz explains that they both want to register as adventurers and also create a party. Mocha gets it and asks Royal to take off his helmet, following guild rules. Royal realizes he forgot to remove his helmet and awkwardly apologizes, saying he'll take it off right away. He takes off the helmet, showing his face, while the receptionist looks surprised. The receptionist is a bit surprised to see Royal's face, but says everything's fine and starts the registration. She then explains about ranks, quests, and other details about being an adventurer. In the end, Royal and Diz finally become official adventurers. When the receptionist asks for their party name, Diz answers that they chose Altera Vita to symbolize their new start, since they both got fired from their old jobs. They decided on this name together the night before. The receptionist compliments the party name and gives them their adventurer tags, warning to be careful not to lose them since there's a fee to make new ones. The two look excited at their new IDs, feeling like this really is a new beginning for them. Royal keeps looking at his new adventurer tag, thinking he never imagined taking a different path in life, since he always thought he'd be a gatekeeper forever. The receptionist smiles and waves at him, trying to lighten the mood. He feels grateful and pumped, already thinking it's finally time to face the dungeon. While Royal and Diz are entering the guild, a group of adventurers mocks a guy named Miguel, saying he got unlucky this time. Miguel, who looks pretty intimidating, gets irritated and glares at the others, but they're just teasing. One of them says that not even the great demon god can do well there. After that, they wish him better luck next time. Miguel watches Royal walk by and things get tense. He keeps staring at Royal with a serious, suspicious look, clearly bothered by something. Miguel gets support from the group, who says no one would blame him for quitting since the challenge looks too dangerous. Even so, he decides not to back down and says he has no choice, so he'll face the challenge with the others. Miguel approaches the couple who just registered at the guild, introduces himself, and says he wants to talk to them for a moment. The protagonist asks if he needs something. The protagonist watches Miguel closely and notices he wears some pretty worn leather armor, carries a long sword in great shape, and is visibly bigger and stronger than him. The protagonist gets nervous seeing that Miguel seems like an experienced adventurer and starts wondering if he did something wrong. While he's thinking about what to say, Miguel calls the couple to follow him, and they agree, even though they don't really know why. Miguel explains that, according to guild rules, newbies have to duel with more experienced adventurers. The protagonist gets ready to fight, still a bit surprised by the situation, while his companion watches worried. The duel between Royal and Miguel begins. Miguel asks the protagonist's name and recognizes him. Royal thinks he can't rely on Diz all the time and decides to prove his worth, grabbing his weapon and getting ready for the fight, showing that he's determined to really face the challenge. The fight starts, with Royal and Miguel facing off in the center of the arena. Royal is tense, holding his spear, and already starts to doubt if he'll be able to fight well, since he's barely used this weapon before. Even so, he tries to focus and gets ready for whatever comes. Royal thinks that if he used his most powerful weapon, Miguel would probably lose easily, so he decides to go easy. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to another place, where a mysterious man is looking at an ancient monument, reading about Balor, the dreaded evil eye. A boy and his sister feel the place is really creepy. He promises he'll block all the enemy's attacks and spells, leaving the attacking to her. The two trust each other, and she asks her brother not to die during the fight, even though he thinks there's no way he'll fall that easily. The girl tries to say something to her brother about when they come back, but he quickly cuts her off, asking her not to say anything else. She agrees, smiling, and they both get ready to move forward together. A giant monster appears before the siblings, ready for battle. The boy stands in front of his sister, determined to protect her, and starts summoning the strongest barrier he can to defend Alice, showing that no matter what happens, he won't let anything get to her. Royal summons a powerful barrier around himself, using advanced magic to create an isolated space and absolute protection. The audience is surprised, noticing the mood has totally changed. Some still try to tease Royal, asking if he's scared, but everyone is focused on the impressive magic he just showed. Miguel gets mad because the others don't have to risk themselves, but even so, he charges at his opponent. With no choice, he runs forward, yelling and attacking with everything he's got. Royal sees the attack coming full force and panics, wondering if his protection magic really activated. He freaks out, thinking if it didn't work, he's totally screwed. Royal starts thinking that his magic always worked against orcs and wraiths, those common monsters, but now he's not sure if it'll hold up against an experienced adventurer like Miguel. Miguel ends up getting hit and falls to the ground with a shout, showing that Royal's magic worked and caught him off guard, leaving everyone around paying close attention to the outcome of the duel. After the attack, Royal stands in the middle of the arena, holding his spear and trying to catch his breath. The atmosphere is silent, everyone watching in shock, still processing what just happened. Miguel, completely exhausted, sits on the ground against the wall, defeated. Royal, relieved, wipes his forehead and smiles, thankful he got through it unharmed. Royal stands in his armor at the gate, but even that doesn't save him from mosquitoes. He thinks that, for a gatekeeper, the biggest enemy is the mosquito. When one gets into the armor, it's over. There's nothing you can do but accept the torment until the bug gives up. Royal remembers that, for him, mosquitoes were worse than any monster. He just endured the itching, hoping it would end soon. One day, he noticed they suddenly stopped bothering him. Back then, he thought it was luck, but now he realizes he probably activated a magic barrier without meaning to, keeping the mosquitoes outside. Royal realizes that the spell he made just to get rid of mosquitoes ended up saving him in the fight. He's super relieved and happy it worked, while everyone else notices the result too. After Royal's victory, Diz runs up and gives him a tight hug, really happy with the result. He's a bit surprised but realizes it was thanks to the mosquito spell that he made it that far. He enjoys the moment, and even feels thankful to those mosquitoes, thinking it was all worth it. After Royal's win, a new character appears in the arena and asks for a moment to talk. He introduces himself as Munyoshi, a traveler always looking for strength. The people around are impressed, saying Royal beat Miguel in an instant, and Munyoshi quickly guesses he must be a famous knight. The atmosphere gets tense when Munyoshi draws everyone's attention. Nobody knows much about him, but just looking at him you can tell he's dangerous. He approaches Royal, and without beating around the bush, asks for a duel in front of everyone. Another strong guy shows up out of nowhere, leaving Royal pretty surprised and a bit nervous about it. Munyoshi asks if Royal isn't going to get ready for the duel, but Royal is kind of lost because everything happened so fast. Without much talk, Royal moves his spear aside, saying it's just getting in the way, showing he's not worried about using a weapon, surprising everyone. Royal gets a little embarrassed, thinking he just stuttered and couldn't sound confident. Munyoshi comments that Royal seems pretty sure of himself, but warns he's different from the previous opponent. Royal notices that Munyoshi is on a different level, nothing like the Oni from the last fight. Royal realizes his comment didn't really make sense, since he can't even tell the difference in strength between the two. Munyoshi feels underestimated and says he'll attack with a strike, telling Royal to take it. Before Royal can even answer, Munyoshi already goes for it, saying there's no more talking. As soon as Munyoshi attacks, Diz shows up out of nowhere and lands a heavy punch, blast punch, right in his face, sending the guy flying and stopping the attack completely. After Diz's punch, everyone's shocked with the dust rising in the ring. Munyoshi is dazed, barely able to stand, while Royal looks at Diz, confused, only managing a huh in surprise. Diz explains with a smile that she didn't think the guy would listen, so she just acted and ended things right away. Royal is stunned by her move, only able to react with shock, not believing what he just saw. Diz surprises everyone by beating the opponent easily, showing strength no one expected. The other guy leaves the fight, complaining about his ribs, while Royal realizes it's better not to make Diz mad, she's way stronger than she looks. After the fight, Miguel and the others throw a welcome party for Royal and Diz. They end up drinking non-stop while Miguel explains the reason for the celebration. The mood is festive and everyone's getting along. During the party, Miguel explains that a lot of new adventurers are overconfident and end up putting themselves in danger. That's why it's tradition to humiliate newbies at least once, to teach them a lesson. But in Royal's case, he says it wasn't needed, since Royal already knows his own limits. After the party, Miguel passes out from drinking so much. Royal notices that everyone welcomed him and Diz in a really friendly way, so he starts thinking maybe he'll do just fine in this new place. Right after, someone approaches and catches his attention. Royal, still a bit lost, sees a girl coming up and doesn't remember who she island. She apologizes for interrupting the day before and realizes he really doesn't remember her. So, she decides to show who she really is by taking off her hat. When Royal realizes who the girl is, he's shocked, remembering the situation from before. The girl apologizes for probably scaring him, but ends up showing she's not scary at all, just really worried. Royal then realizes she's a lot more chill than she seemed. The girl approaches Royal and asks about the magic he used earlier. She saw what happened and, a little embarrassed, says she has a request for him. Royal's surprised and curious about her coming up to him. The girl, determined, asks to be Royal's apprentice, totally surprising him with the direct request. Royal is speechless, only able to say, "Huh?" She leans forward, holding her hat with both hands, and asks to be Royal's disciple, leaving him even more confused, not really getting why she's insisting so much. Royal starts thinking about the strength test at the guild, remembering that everyone thinks he blocked Miguel's attack just with his armor. Meanwhile, the girl insists, asking if he used magic at that moment, already excited about being his disciple. He's confused, not even sure if what he did was really magic. The girl says she saw Royal exorcise the Wraith easily the day before, and gets even more impressed, thinking that was his magic too. She says she saw everything and asks again, excited to be accepted as his apprentice. She bows and insists on becoming his disciple, but Royal gets all flustered, trying to politely refuse. He explains that he doesn't know how to teach, since he only used magic by instinct and got lucky. The girl gets frustrated, realizing it's still too soon to become his disciple. She makes a disappointed face and grips her hat tightly, while Royal just watches, not knowing what to say. She stands up determined, says she'll get better, and leaves the room in a hurry, leaving Royal confused, wondering if she misunderstood what he said. She leaves determined, saying she'll never give up until she's recognized as Royal's disciple. He sits there thinking if he explained himself properly, since all he meant was that it's too soon to take on an apprentice. That night, a girl enters an elegant room where a man is working at his desk. He asks how the newbies did that day, curious about the newcomers. The employee excitedly talks about the newbies. She says Royal is really handsome and beat Miguel easily, which impressed her. The boss just listens, realizing she's totally smitten with the new adventurer. She comments that the girl seems connected to the church, maybe a martial artist or something similar. The boss starts to suspect a possible link to the Sakuran Knights, finding the situation interesting. They decide to keep an eye on the newbies and watch everything that happens closely. The boss sends the employee off and asks to be notified if anything important happens. After she leaves, he's alone looking out the window, hoping nothing bad happens during the night. When she gets home that night, the girl tells Diz what happened. Diz is worried, while Royal shows up, not understanding anything, asking what's going on. Diz asks what Royal thought of the girl who showed up. He answers awkwardly, saying she seemed like a newbie with a lot of wrong ideas and left quickly. Diz also thinks about her impression, thinking she looked like a mage but really confused. Diz explains that the girl with the hat is a high-level adventurer, probably the best mage in the city. She's famous, even appears in adventurer newspapers, and has top-tier magic power, enough to be a court mage if she wanted. Royal is shocked to find out how important she island. Diz goes on saying that besides being a real mage, all the girl's gear is top-notch. Royal is surprised, but Diz says it's normal for him not to know, since he spent all his time just as a gatekeeper. Diz asks why Royal thinks the girl was so frustrated. She explains that someone with court mage skills bowed and asked to be his apprentice, but still got rejected. Then Diz wants to know exactly what Royal said to her at that moment. Diz says that Royal basically gave the impression to the girl that she wasn't skilled enough to be his disciple yet. The girl gets down hearing that, and Royal only now realizes how heavy his words were, feeling a bit embarrassed. Diz tries to hold back laughter at the situation. Diz starts laughing a lot and says Royal is the best. Then she says the girl doesn't seem like a bad person, just a bit lost from years without really talking to anyone. Diz suggests that next time they meet her, they should have a proper conversation with her. Diz offers to help Royal practice communication slowly, saying she'll be his partner in that. Royal thanks her awkwardly but accepts. In the end, they get ready to start this practice together. The day comes for Royal to go to a dungeon for the first time. Even so, he still seems lost in thought about what happened the day before. Diz notices and tells him not to get stuck on that, since it was an important moment and he should enjoy it. Royal ends up agreeing and tries to cheer up. Royal and Diz arrive at the guild and see the place is packed in the morning, with a bunch of adventurers crowded around the mission boards. They comment that it's always busy at this time, and decide that next time, they'll try to get there earlier to avoid the rush. In the middle of the crowded guild, an adventurer bursts in shouting that a horde of high orcs has appeared in the Est Forest. He warns everyone that it's a stampede, meaning a massive attack. The whole place gets tense and people realize now isn't the time to think about dungeons, which totally changes the vibe there. Royal and Diz understand that the priority has changed. A group of monsters comes out of the forest and rushes toward the city, starting an emergency situation known as a stampede. This type of attack hadn't happened for 15 years, and nobody expected it to come back. A guard at the north gate of the city is on duty, always told to watch for invasions from that forest. But even he is caught by surprise. The guild is full of alert adventurers, chatting and waiting for news. A receptionist is taking orders at the counter, while everyone waits for information. Two characters get tense when they hear about the stampede, since it's a rare event. The two have never been through something like this before and are clearly surprised by what's going on. One of the adventurers runs into the room and loudly announces there's an emergency request. Everyone pays attention, showing how serious things are. The group gets the news that about 60 high orcs have appeared in the forest. Everyone is surprised, since even veteran adventurers have a hard time dealing with just one of these monsters. It's a worrying situation, because these orcs are way stronger than normal ones. They explain that just one high orc would be enough to wipe out an entire village. If all 60 high orcs reach the city, it's pretty much guaranteed everything will be destroyed, and everyone gets even more nervous about the danger. Some believe the city is doomed, but one of the adventurers insists they're not going to let that happen. They motivate each other, saying that even if they're high orcs, they're nothing compared to bigger threats like dragons. The group decides to protect the city together. The leader hypes everyone up, saying that if they all work together, they can beat the orcs. The group gets fired up, spirits go up, and everyone decides to fight together to defend the city. They all get ready quickly since the forest is half a day's journey away. Everyone goes together, excited and ready for battle against the orcs. The main characters, who just became adventurers, weren't called for the mission. They're left thinking about what to do, since they recently defeated a high orc themselves, and now they want to check out the dungeon instead of chasing monsters. The girl laughs at the idea of going to the dungeon right now and compliments Royal's honesty. In the end, they both agree there's no way to explore the dungeon until the orc mess is over. They decide to go to the forest to help fight the orcs, thinking they might actually make a difference. The girl cheers up Royal, and the two set off together, ready to show what they can do. Before heading to the forest, Royal decides to double-check the info about the high orcs. He asks Diz to step back a bit, thinking there might be some connection to a past event involving Flora's carriage. Royal uses a spell called Invisible Hand on the ground to search for information. A huge magic circle appears around him and Diz, catching everyone's eye because of the spell's power. Royal's magic sends out waves of energy that spread throughout the city and the surrounding forest. Meanwhile, two orcs notice the effect from a distance, realizing something big is going on. Diz is shocked by the magic Royal just used. He explains that it's the same spell he used before, and he's relieved it worked again. Royal finds out that 62 high orcs are coming to the city, just like the guildmaster had said. But on top of that, he notices there's another, much larger group, 205 high orcs, coming right behind. Royal realizes that the group of 62 high orcs could just be a distraction, and the real danger is the much bigger group of 205 orcs. He thinks that this number is the most the guild could handle, and sees that things are getting really desperate. Royal figures out that even if the guild can beat the 62 high orcs, other groups just as big will show up, tripling the danger. The situation is way more serious than anyone thought. Royal gets scared, thinking that the guild group who left to fight the high orcs will probably get completely wiped out. The threat is much bigger than everyone expected. Royal tells Diz to move away, worried about the danger everyone is facing. He thinks about his friends and realizes he doesn't want to lose anyone in this new place he found. Driven by that feeling, he gets ready to act and protect everyone. Royal casts a powerful spell called Pierce Through Everything. Several energy spears shoot out from the magic circle and go through the forest, leaving Diz stunned by what just happened. The adventurer group reaches the forest and is shocked to see everything's already over. They find a huge trail of destruction, realizing the threat was wiped out before they could even fight. Royal is relieved to see his magic worked and hopes everyone is safe. Meanwhile, the adventurers get to the scene and are speechless in front of all the destruction. They don't understand what happened, but Royal saved the city without anyone noticing. Diz realizes it was Royal who defeated all the high orcs and is impressed, praising him. They talk about whether they should tell the guild, but decide to just leave it alone, since no one would believe them anyway and the guild is too busy. In the end, Royal saves the city without trying to draw attention to himself. The young mage, Sandy, shows up asking Royal to take her on as an apprentice. Diz immediately introduces herself, saying she's part of Royal's group. They decide to talk it out, just the three of them, to figure things out properly. Sandy gets nervous talking to Royal, but ends up saying it was love at first sight. Royal is completely shocked and has no idea how to react, making the whole scene funny and unexpected. Royal is alone in his room, reading books about relationships and trying not to get confused by the girl's words. He remembers phrases like, "You're easy to talk to" and "You're a good person." But from the books, he understands that could just mean friendship and nothing romantic. He tries not to get the wrong idea, even if he's a bit frustrated. Royal gets bummed remembering that questions like, "Are you free this weekend?" usually just mean someone needs help with work. He realizes that when a girl says she has a date, she already has a boyfriend, and that leaves him even more down. Sandy explains she fell in love at first sight with Royal's magic, not with him as a person. Royal is relieved that he didn't misunderstand, since it would have been an emotional shock if it were different. Sandy praises Royal, saying his magic was amazing and asks if that was ultimate magic. Royal starts thinking about her question, surprised by her interest in what kind of magic he used. The group runs into a giant, dangerous enemy. Royal says he's going to use a supreme spell to take down the monster, asking the others to hold it off until he's ready. His teammates react fast and jump into the fight, buying time for Royal to prepare the spell. Once they open up a chance, Royal activates his supreme spell, launching a powerful attack that hits the giant enemy with everything he's got. After the victory, everyone praises Royal, saying he's awesome. Sandy is amazed by the ultimate magic and thinks it's super cool, even though she's considered a talented mage herself. Royal gets a little embarrassed by so many compliments, but gets that everyone there loves seeing powerful techniques in action. Royal gets nervous when he learns that Sandy was the apprentice of the most respected mage in the kingdom. He says he can't teach magic to her because he himself doesn't fully understand his own powers or how he manages to use magic. Diz just watches, finding the situation funny. When Royal says his magic is original, Sandy becomes even more interested and insists on being his apprentice anyway. She even kneels down, showing she's truly determined. Diz observes everything calmly, waiting for Royal's decision. Diz supports the idea and says it will be fun having Sandy with them. Royal, seeing that Sandy doesn't seem like a bad person, ends up accepting her as an apprentice, a bit surprised by how everything happened. Sandy is super happy to be accepted as an apprentice, and thanks excitedly, calling Royal master. The group then decides to return to base now with a new member. Back at the base, the group gathers to measure Royal's mana amount. Diz leads the test, excited to see the result, while Sandy bets the master's numbers will be incredible. Royal remembers he had only measured his mana once before, and back then the value was quite low. Now, expecting a bigger number because of his new powers, he takes the test. The result comes out, only 12, leaving everyone surprised. They comment that beginner magic adventurers usually have between 50 and 100 mana. Sandy reveals she has a little over 800, which impresses everyone. Diz explains that if Royal has more than 1,000, he'll go down in history, raising the expectation for his test. Diz tries to hide that she was a bit shaken by the test result, but insists with a smile that everything is fine and encourages Royal to take his exam soon. Royal gets a bit nervous but decides to go ahead. When he takes the test, the result surprises everyone. Royal reaches the maximum value of 9,999 mana, leaving everyone shocked by this absurd number. The group asks Royal to keep the results secret since the device can't even show his total mana value. He realizes that if people find out about this insane power, he might end up as a test subject in some lab. So, he decides he will hide this secret no matter what. Diz explains to Royal that his magic is on another level, and what is normal for him is absurd for others. She asks him never to act as if it were common or weak, and not to ask if anyone else can do the same, because for people that's just unbelievable. Diz speaks very seriously and emphatically to Royal, never to say his magic is normal or weak. She makes it clear he must never mention it to anyone, reinforcing how dangerous it is to expose that kind of information. Royal feels disappointed because all the cool lines he dreamed of saying, "This is normal, anyone can do this," are now forbidden since they would reveal his absurd power. He realizes he won't be able to play the humble hero like he wanted. Back at the Adventurers Guild, Royal finishes the registration, and the group officially welcomes Sandy to the team. Now, the Altera Vita group has 3 members ready for new adventures together. With the Stampede over, adventurers can accept missions again, but Royal and the group only have access to rank F requests. They end up choosing a ghost extermination mission, exciting Sandy and Diz, while Royal seems a bit surprised by the challenge. Diz notices the ghost mission pays a very high reward for a rank F request, much higher than normal. Even though she finds it strange, she doesn't worry because she trusts Royal. The group leaves the decision in his hands, and Diz warns he has to give his all if they accept. Royal goes to the counter to accept the mission. A bit nervous, while Diz encourages him, saying it's just a training. When he arrives, the clerk recognizes him and calls him excitedly. Royal freezes with nervousness and barely can speak, while the clerk asks if he's okay, and asks him to hand over the adventurer's form and badge. He notices the badge hanging from his neck, but is so nervous he can't even take it off. The clerk, very friendly, asks Royal to bend down and tries to help him remove the badge. She gets close but notices she can't loosen it, finding the badge hard to remove. Royal is surprised by the situation while she keeps trying to help. The clerk finally manages to take Royal's badge off and says she'll handle the paperwork for him, adding that if he has problems again, he just has to ask for help. Royal returns to the group and says he managed to accept the mission but doesn't seem very happy. Diz notices immediately and asks if it's true he's not happy, while Royal confirms and thinks about the clerk, Mocha-san. Royal is suspicious of Mocha-san, thinking she's nice just to later pile annoying requests on them or use them for her own convenience. He even imagines she has ulterior motives and thinks he won't fall for it. Meanwhile, Diz tries to explain that he's misunderstanding everything because Mocha-san usually ignores other male adventurers. Diz casually says she thinks Mocha really has an interest in Royal because he's strong, honest, and has potential. She says that's why women won't ignore him. And she even adds that Royal doesn't realize it, but he's quite handsome, so if he hadn't worn a helmet at his old job, it would have been a headache for him. Royal is surprised, didn't even know he was considered handsome, and she even suggests maybe his old colleagues were jealous because of that. Diz quickly cuts him off and tells Royal not to get cocky just because he's handsome, making it clear she's not with him just for his looks. She says she even hates guys who only have beauty and nothing else. Royal, on the other side, is completely shaken and cries, complaining he should have heard that about 15 years ago because it would have changed everything in his life. Still thoughtful, Royal receives a warning from the girls to be careful from now on, since he probably won't be alone anymore. He realizes there's no use looking back and decides to focus on enjoying his new life as an adventurer, the way he always dreamed, ready to move forward with the group. The group arrives at the ghost extermination mission site. Royal is surprised by the high reward and asks why. The girl explains ghosts can be defeated just by throwing holy water on them, but since that's expensive, the reward already includes that cost. They comment that holy water costs 1,000 gold per bottle, and about 10 ghosts appear per night at that place. These low-level ghosts don't harm people, but if they accumulate they can turn into a strong spirit, so they need to be defeated before that happens. Even though it's a somewhat scary job, it's a good business for beginner adventurers to make money. While the girl goes to greet the client, the group realizes that with Royal there, they'll make a good profit from the mission. The girl talks to the person responsible for the place, who confirms they took the extermination request. He says the ghosts have been quiet lately, but asks them to do the job properly. After that, she returns to the gate where the group waits, and they enter the cemetery together, ready to start the mission. The group enters cautiously, feeling something strange in the place, thinking it might be a high-level spirit. Shortly after, Sandy prepares a spell and shows it to the others, impressing everyone by showing real magic happening right in front of them. After finishing the job, the group notices the area is completely purified because of the protagonist's exorcism, so no ghost will appear there for a long time. They even remember a previous exorcism that had a similar effect, realizing they ended up taking work away from other adventurers by being too strong. The protagonist worries, thinking he did something wrong again, but receives support and hears he doesn't need to apologize because he didn't do anything wrong. They comment that everything depends on how they present the result to the client, and that it's possible to spin the situation well. After that, they decide to go together to file the job report. The team returns and informs that the service is done. The client, surprised, thinks they finished too quickly, but they guarantee no ghost will appear for at least a year. The man is a bit skeptical but accepts the news and is sent back to work, getting a scolding from Diz, who doesn't let it slide. Diz shows a crucifix and asks if the man recognizes the object. The client gets scared and soon realizes what it is, becoming totally surprised. The client is shocked when he realizes Diz is an inquisitor. Royal remembers inquisitors are sent by the church to inspect and make sure nothing wrong is happening. He thinks he saw people like that in the past when he worked as a doorman, and is now surprised imagining that Diz was once an inquisitor. Diz reveals she doesn't intend to report or punish the client out of laziness, just wants to ask him a favor. The man gets very nervous because pretending to be an inspector is a serious matter, but Royal decides to trust Diz and waits to see what she will ask. Diz takes the man to the cemetery to show that the ghosts really disappeared. He's surprised to see the place clean and understands that no ghost will appear there for a good while. She reassures the client that he doesn't need to worry anymore. Diz only asks him to keep posting ghost extermination missions to help newbies who need money. The man agrees quickly since it won't cause him any loss. The man, a bit scared, agrees quickly with everything Diz asked. She says she hopes he's sincere since she'll be counting on him to help the newbies. After that, he just signs the mission paper and everything is settled. The group sits down to relax after solving the whole mess with the ghost hunt missions. The mood is light, and the protagonist asks Diz if that story about her being an inspector was really true. She notices his doubt and starts to answer, changing the tone of the conversation a bit. Diz explains with a smile that she never said she was an inspector. The guy who took care of the place misunderstood alone. Meanwhile, the protagonist thinks it's true, since no one really checked church people when he worked as a doorman, so those visits went by without problems. She also says she doesn't worry, since the church isn't even under that place's jurisdiction. The group receives the food at the tavern. The mood is light and lively. Diz comments that even if she got caught, she'd only get a scolding because she's practically family to the church. Everyone prepares to celebrate Sandy's arrival and the completion of her first mission. They toast together, excited, and start enjoying the meal. The group enjoys the food together, everyone relaxed and smiling while chatting. Royal watches the moment and thinks situations like this are really nice, bringing a good feeling of belonging. Then, Diz asks how the adventurer life has been for him, opening space for a more personal conversation. While eating, Royal thinks about everything that happened during the day. He discovered that his mana and magic are above normal. Sandy became his apprentice, and the group went ghost hunting together in a rare event that only happens once every few decades. When asked if he's having fun, he answers a bit awkwardly that yes, and he sees that this day was special for Sandy too, who was happy to be accepted as an apprentice. They decide to keep accepting missions together to rank up, in a light and lively mood. The next morning, Royal wakes up at the base and realizes that even after completing the mission the day before, there's still a lot to improve to enjoy life as an adventurer. He decides to study more about how to talk better with people, grabbing a book on conversation techniques to try to fit in more. Royal meets Sandy early in the hallway. He remembers the tips from the conversation book and tries to put them into practice, responding politely but a bit stiff to her greeting. Sandy thinks for a moment, wondering if she might have bothered by suddenly joining the group. Royal answers that he was also nervous and tries to follow what he read in the book, agreeing with Sandy's words. She smiles happily at the response, but still asks if he really thinks she's good enough to be his apprentice. They continue walking together down the corridor, now more at ease. Royal is surprised by Sandy's magical skills, praising her and showing interest. Sandy says she's already happy just seeing his magic, though she's still far from really skilled. They keep exchanging compliments, with Sandy saying she'll work hard to master the master's magic, while Royal notices how motivated she is. Sandy comments that it's now much easier to talk to Royal than the day before. He's surprised and thinks the conversation techniques for popularity book is really working. Royal realizes that besides being considered handsome, he's getting better at communicating with others. He thinks if he keeps it up, he might become quite popular. Then, he and the group get ready to explore the day's first dungeon. The group heads to the city's west gate to go to the dungeon. There, they meet a girl who recognizes Royal as a former member of the Sakharin Knights. He gets a bit embarrassed, trying to deny the elite title, while thinking about how he should better respond in situations like that. Royal thinks he's no kind of elite since his post was at the North Gate, where almost no one passed. Still, the girl gets excited, praises him, and asks to shake his hand. Royal is surprised by her radiant way and introduces himself. The girl gets thrilled after shaking Royal's hand, saying she'll never wash her hand again. She thinks he's on a secret mission and promises not to tell anyone. Royal finds it strange hearing that kind of thing in person. In the end, she praises him and lets the group pass through the gate. Royal realizes he let the girl misunderstand everything about him and didn't even get to talk properly since she got very excited. He thinks talking to Sandy is easier because she agrees with everything he says. In the end, Diz jokes and calls Royal an elite guard, surprising him. Royal tries to cheer up while Diz pulls the group forward, saying they're finally going into the dungeon they've been waiting for. He notices it's not just him who's nervous, but also Diz and Sandy, since it's the three of their first dungeon. They then go together to the Dungeon of First Steps. The city is surrounded by several dungeons that serve as monster gathering points, but the main highlight is the hardest maze, the Great Maze of Melki. Royal's group, however, will enter the most basic dungeon called the Dungeon of First Steps, known for beginners. Those who can't pass this dungeon usually give up on being adventurers. Royal shows happiness and Diz notices, commenting to him. Royal is excited because he's waited a long time for this moment. While talking to Diz, he's called by Miguel, a more experienced adventurer. Miguel asks if they're going to the semi-human dungeon, but Royal explains that since they're still rank F, they'll only enter the dungeon of first steps. Miguel recalls Royal just recently became an adventurer and shows sympathy. Miguel explains that the semi-human's den is a rank B dungeon full of monsters like goblins and minotaurs, and is next to the dungeon of first steps. He gives a final warning to Royal not to let his guard down, and each group goes its way inside the dungeons. Royal thinks deeply, understanding the kind of challenge he's starting. The group reaches the dungeon entrance and faces the challenge ahead. They enter together, going down the stairs and advancing through the dungeon corridors, ready for whatever comes. The mood is expectant and a bit tense since it's their first dungeon. They follow the corridors and stop before a door where they expect monsters to be waiting. Royal tries to calm down, excited to be in a real dungeon. They exchange a few quick words, prepare themselves, and wait to see what kind of monsters they'll face next. As soon as they enter the room, the group finds some slimes, considered the weakest monsters. Royal realizes this is typical for adventures since the first fight is usually against slimes or goblins. They get ready to attack, excited to face their own slime each. Diz defeats a slime with a direct punch, and Sandy eliminates another using fire magic. Royal watches impressed by their speed but notices he wasn't even ready to fight yet, while his own slime prepares to attack. Royal creates a magic barrier to defend against the slime's attack, surprising the girls with how he used the magic. He himself is a bit confused by the result, but manages to protect himself without problems. After the slime is defeated, Diz notices it disappeared without leaving the magic stone, surprising her. Soon after, she shows Royal what the magic stone would be, and explains that dungeon monsters usually leave those stones when defeated, which is why many adventurers risk themselves in dungeons seeking those rewards. Royal is surprised because he's never seen one before. Diz says she left the church because she wanted the freedom adventurers have, but quickly explains that most adventurers are really after money. The true goal of almost everyone is to defeat monsters to get magic stones and sell them in large quantities, all to make money. Royal realizes that, deep down, that's the main motivation of the profession. Royal understands he can't live on romance or small magic stones, since a simple stone doesn't even pay for a loaf of bread. Diz cheers the group, saying slimes are easy to defeat just with punches or stomps. They decide to move on to the next dungeon room, but Royal remembers he has trouble with physical attacks, and already gets tense just thinking about facing more monsters that way. The group enters the next room and already finds more slimes waiting. Royal gets excited and goes forward, but before finishing his attack, Sandy casts a fireball spell and destroys the slime in front of everyone. Royal is surprised by his companion's speed. Royal tries to hit the slime this time but misses and falls to the ground. Meanwhile, his friend quickly notices the danger and kicks the slime, protecting the group. Royal tries again to fight the slime but ends up stumbling and taking a bad fall, landing on his back. The girls watch, a bit worried, seeing he's struggling even with the simplest monster. After falling again, Royal feels a bit discouraged but gets support from friends, who say everyone has strengths and weaknesses. In the next room, more slimes appear, and Royal, determined, decides to try a different approach, becoming more serious and focused. Royal casts a powerful spell that passes through all the slimes at once, showing he decided to go all out and use his full potential right away. The group is surprised to see that besides the slimes defeated, Royal's magic opened a huge hole in the dungeon wall. They find it strange since walls are usually tough, but Royal explains dungeons regenerate after a while, so it's no problem. Diz tells Royal to hold the magic and keep the spell sealed until he learns to control it better, or else he'll cause chaos in the dungeon. She encourages Royal, saying he'll get the hang of it quickly. Soon after, she gets the idea to explore the hole in the wall, making the group curious about what might be on the other side. The group crawls through the tunnel opened in the dungeon wall, finding it strange because they've never heard of anyone doing that before. Royal is impressed by the tunnel size and starts getting nervous about what they might find, but follows along, curious to see where it leads. After crossing the tunnel, the girl asks to talk to Royal once they get out of there. They keep exploring, entering several rooms full of slimes, defeating everything on the way, going deeper and deeper into the dungeon. The group ends up in a huge room and comes face to face with a giant monster. As soon as it notices them, the monster gets furious and starts questioning who they are and where they came from, clearly ready to attack. The group faces the giant monster and its allies. The mood gets heavy, and you can feel that this boss is much stronger than the enemies they've met so far. Royal notices the monster's pressure is off the charts, putting everyone on alert. They realize the dungeon boss is actually a giant goblin. Though it looks threatening, it's considered just a beginner-level boss. Royal tries to calm down, remembering that after all, they're just goblins, but the boss gets ready to attack by throwing a huge rock at them. The goblin boss orders its allies to attack, raising the tension. Royal hears Diz's command, telling him to defeat the enemies. Everyone jumps into action, preparing to face the horde of goblins coming at them. Royal had already defeated several slimes before reaching this room, so he was more confident using his barrier. He activates his absolute inviolable isolation barrier, this time stronger than before, wanting to see if the goblin boss can break through his defense. The goblins start attacking in groups, trying to hit Royal with arrows and weapons, but he keeps advancing confidently, unshaken, and his magic barrier blocks all attacks. The enemies get scared by his defense, but Royal stays firm, ready to face the boss. The goblin boss is shocked by Royal's resistance, not believing what he's seeing. He remembers having defeated many adventurers with his big club, crushing many easily. Still, he prepares to attack, sure his weapon will solve the situation as always. The goblin shouts that he'll finish Royal once and for all, calling him like all the other adventurers. Royal feels the pressure but tries to stay calm, remembering he's been through similar situations, like the training with Miguel. He thinks that despite the heavy atmosphere, it's still just a beginner dungeon, so he tries not to panic and prepares to face the goblin boss for real. The protagonist faces a giant monster that charges furiously at him. Even in danger, he stays firm and prepares to fight, showing he won't run from the challenge. The protagonist defeats the monster and is surprised to see he succeeded. The enemy's body disappears, leaving behind only a shining stone, which he picks up, admiring his achievement. He gets excited, realizing he got a magic stone for the first time, even after defeating many monsters before. He celebrates and shows it to his companion, who congratulates him on the boss victory and praises the result, making clear it was great progress for him. The group realizes they accidentally entered a rank B dungeon called the Semi-Human's Den while distracted fighting monsters. They connect the dots and understand the places where Miguel and others had gone. The protagonist admits he was so focused on fighting, he didn't notice the dungeon's mood change. The group is surprised about how the protagonist defeated many strong goblins, including an archer, a mage, and even the king, thinking they were common enemies. One girl admits she didn't expect him to be so strong, especially just using defensive magic. In the end, she thanks him for letting her see the magic up close, and the protagonist gets embarrassed, saying he only managed it thanks to their help. The protagonist holds the magic stone, thinking he's getting stronger and now can use magic properly. He says he gained confidence after defeating so many monsters alone and thanks his friends for coming with him so far. He says he finally feels useful and hopes the group keeps going together, showing he's excited to continue with the two. The group remembers they need to go back properly through the initial dungeon, and soon they defeat the boss of that area too. The protagonist notices something strange with a slime, which suddenly activates an isolation barrier, surprising everyone. After clearing the stage, the group finds a treasure chest for the first time. They open it excitedly but only find a shining medal inside, getting a bit surprised by the simple reward. The group discovers the medal found is a promotion medal. Diz explains that by taking it to the guild, the protagonist can rank up from F to E. They get excited since this medal is part of the rewards for clearing the dungeon. The protagonist realizes that by ranking up to E, he'll finally be able to take more important missions outside the city, as rank F missions are just simple jobs. He understands that Diz wanted to return to this dungeon precisely because of this promotion chance. In the end, he reflects that despite everything that happened in the first dungeon, they gained a lot of experience and came out ahead. The Altera Vita group leaves the initial dungeon victorious, enjoying the end of the challenge while watching the scenery outside. The next day, a new stage of the adventure is about to begin for them. The group goes to Sass Forest, near Melky City, to complete a monster hunting mission. They choose this location because it's quieter, as other adventurers went to investigate a different forest due to a recent incident. Besides the mission, they take the chance to train Sandy in magic, while she gets excited to learn and see new magic up close. Diz appears excited, showing she already caught 3 horned rabbits, rank E monsters, and says it wasn't difficult. The protagonist is impressed by her speed, while Diz goes looking for another target. Even with her calm appearance, she really likes to fight. Diz comes back smiling, already carrying a giant defeated boar, showing she finished the job quickly. The protagonist again notices how much she likes to fight despite seeming calm. Later, they talk about going deeper into the forest to face bigger monsters, while Diz encourages the group in magic training. The protagonist thanks her for the strength and kindness.